Welcome back. Well, we've looked at the teams and the players and at some of the possibilities, and now let's add a little to the speculation as we join our guests here tonight. Kevin Keegan, Mike Shannon, Ian St John and Brian Hamilton. And joining us live in Mexico, we've got Ron Atkinson, David Pleat and Billy McNeill. Kevin, I'd like to come to you first of all. All this speculation still about Bryan Robson and his fitness. There's an alarming parallel with you, in fact, in 1982 in Spain as England's captain, and you were doubtful and didn't start off in action in that World Cup.
That's right. Obviously, probably I better than anyone knows how he feels. Feel very sorry for him because this thing doesn't come around every year. You have to wait a long time for it. It's slightly different in the fact that I definitely couldn't play. There was no way. I mean, I was laying on my back and totally unfit. It's probably worse for him, actually, because there's a chance he can play, albeit maybe it's 3/4 or even half of what we know he can. As I say, with me, it was definite. And I feel sorry for him, and I think if people just left him alone, he will know better than anybody else whether he's going to be fit or not, won't he?
I mean, I hate to break into Ron Atkinson's obviously heavy work schedule out there in Guadalajara. Ron, but you know the fella better than anybody. I mean, will he push himself to play? I mean, should we play a half-fit Bryan Robson, or how do you see the situation as his manager of Manchester United?
I think if there's any possibility of him playing, he'll play. The problem he's got is the Achilles tendon. Now, obviously, Bobby Robson's problem is if he plays him in the first game, he could well put him out for the rest of the tournament. But I think Robbo will be sensible. That's Bryan Robson. I think if he feels he can be fair to the players he's playing with and do himself justice, I think he'll play.
Really? Ian?
We're all just sitting here back home, Ron, and the papers have been full of it. You know, you're out there with him in the camp. You know, how fit really is he?
Well, I haven't spoken to Brian since he left for Colorado Springs. I'm expecting a phone call from him later on this evening just to discuss his problem. But he's a professional. He knows what the situation is. He knows how important it is to England. And I'm sure he won't take the risk of letting himself or his country down.
Kevin?
I'll tell you what was one of the biggest problems I had in Spain, and that was that Ron Greenwood was coming up and saying, look, come down and be with the lads and smile and try and be happy. And it's really difficult.
Yes.
You know you want to keep the atmosphere going. It's your job as captain to set an example, of which Bryan Robson does that magnificently. Yeah. But to try and smile when you're not ready and your whole world's going by you,
yes.
I think
very
it's going to be hard for him to be sensible. I think that he's got to get out there and he's got to give it a crack. I think that either his shoulder or his Achilles, whatever, I think he's got to get out there and play. And that's the only way.
Well, David Pleat, you're with the England camp out there. What is the latest news on Bryan Robson, and what's your view on this crucial situation?
Well, he's gone down to Sotillo this afternoon, and he'll have a really hard crack at it. And if he comes through it well, I'm sure they'll be very pleased and they'll be looking to put him in. But I think that the boy Hodges done particularly well, and he'll be eager to get a chance. I don't believe any man is indispensable, and it would possibly save Robson for the later stages, because I think we can get through this group.
We are set up very well there at the moment, aren't we? I mean, things are looking good for England.
The spirit's very good, the morale's high. They've had plenty to do around the camp. They're in beautiful surroundings. They've managed to keep themselves occupied. There's plenty of press here. There's been a good camaraderie amongst the players. And I think they're anticipating a start now. They can't wait to get going. But the spirit is exceptionally good.
One of the areas, David, still being discussed is who we will play up front. I mean, it's clear that Bobby Robson has made up his mind. He hasn't announced it yet. But who do you feel will be the front men looking for the goals?
Yes, I think Beardsley's had a very good sessions with them since they've come out on this training. But Lineker will get the place with Haitley, and I think Waddle will be the third forward.
Right, let's move on now, if we can, to Billy McNeill. I think you're in Mexico City, Billy, aren't you? Still awaiting, I think, the arrival of the Scots, Bill, aren't you?
That's right, Brian. They haven't come in as yet.
But there's a lot of... I'm sorry, there's a lot of speculation, Billy, there's a lot of speculation about the form of Charlie Nicholas and that he might, in fact, be a key man. Graham Souness was saying that the other night on TV, and I mean, you know the lad, you've had him at Celtic and so on, back in his early days. Is this the big stage for Charlie?
Well, he's certainly got the ability, Brian, and it won't be a bigger stage than this one. He's got all the ability in the world, he's got all the confidence. I think the very fact that Kenny Dalglish has lost out will give him a further impetus. And really, it is the place for Charlie to shine, and he'll enjoy the big occasion, and I'm sure he'll have a go.
Billy, Alex Ferguson has said, you know, he's going to give Charlie a free rein. Now, when you had him at Celtic, that was the role that you gave him, wasn't it?
That's right, Saint. You've got to provide him with supply, and you've got to get him in the box, give him a bit of freedom. Don't ask him to be chasing after defenders, but if you can get the ball to him, he'll commit people, and he makes an opportunity, makes a bit of space, and good finisher, good finisher.
And he's looking good in training, I believe.
So I believe, you know, training often cheats us, Ian, but, you know, we can build our hopes that he is looking good, and he's perky, and he's confident, and he's cocky.
It's a tough old group for you, though, isn't it?
I think that's one advantage to us, Brian, to be frank with you, that whichever way we look at it, there's not an easy game, and so we can't be accused of falling over a straw, as it were. And I think Scotland are always better as underdogs.
Good. Let's move on to Northern Ireland now with Brian Hamilton, a former international, always playing to their limits.
Yes,
and delighting everybody as they did in Spain. Do you see another typical Spanish performance from them here in Mexico?
Well, I think they're very confident. I think they've had a good training session before they went, and then they went to Albuquerque. I think they've enjoyed their stay, and there's one sure thing, they'll go over to Mexico and enjoy themselves.
Who do you think are their key players? Norman Whiteside, obviously, I'd imagine would be one.
Well, I feel that the players who have played in form recently, you must never discount Pat Jennings, who's been a legend in our time. I think he's a very, very important player to the Irish. Sammy McIlroy is important, and also, like I say, Norman Whiteside.
Norman Whiteside. Ron Atkinson, I know that there is obviously a feeling that Norman is such a competitive player, and I just want, I mean, he came through Spain brilliantly as, what, a 16, 17-year-old. I just wonder if there might be a possibility with his style of play, he might get on the wrong side of referees out there?
Well, I think that's always a possibility. He's an aggressive player, he competes for everything, and sometimes runs the risks of upsetting referees. I think one of the things that's going to happen is I think there's a possibility, you know, Norman might go back to playing up front out here. I think Billy Bingham has a feeling that Norman's ability to hold the ball up and get players up to support him might be invaluable out in the heat and altitude, and it could well be that he plays in a role similar to what he did in Spain.
I think if that is the case, I think what we've got out there is a boy, Colin Clark, who's an exceptionally good player with the ball, played the feet, and also with his back to goal. So if that is the case, Ron, I think that Colin Clark could be looked at as well.
Ron, before we
Yes,
leave...
I think it...
Yeah.
Go on, Ron.
Go on.
I think he'll push himself into contention. And, you know, Jerry Armstrong, the old warhorse, he's out here and he fancies his chance of breaking back in the side. He's working very hard to break back into the team. So there's a lot of competition going on.
When you haven't
You
been...
look round here,
When you haven't been thrown out of training grounds by the Algerians and things like that, Ron, I mean, have you seen anything much that really has impressed you?
I watched Brazil play yesterday. They're always good to watch, of course. They've got exciting forwards coming forward. They've got midfield players that can create. But they do look as if they've still got a problem at the back. I know they won 16-1, but they weren't too good defensively.
Ron, thanks a lot. Enjoy the sunshine out there. And thanks to all our lads out in Mexico. Mick, go on.
Listen to all the boys talk. It interests me. For me, I'd play the best England team, #1. You know, I mean, let's not say we're going to rest someone and play them in the next game. Let's take one game at a time, get out there. Then if you've got to put someone in, put them in. Not try and save them for later on. The front position is interesting. Gary Lineker's obviously had a bit of a problem with his... and Beardsley, Kevin used to play with him up at... I think Mexico will suit him because you can't go on those long runs. And Lineker likes him in behind. And I think the likes of Beardsley will do great out there, especially if you can get it to his feet.
I think we've got a month to get you to say Lineker properly for a start.
Yeah, that's right.
Lineker.
You'll even Lineker.
But you know the thing with Beardsley, what worries me, I mean, I personally think he's the best player in England. I mean, people will laugh at that. But for a long time, I mean, I've had the privilege of playing with him for nearly 2 years. And what would be a criminal for me is if he starts trying to compromise. That would be the worst thing. Either put him in because he thinks he's good enough, or don't put him in. But don't play him back way behind the front two, because that destroys a lad. He's not good.
I think ability-wise, I mean, for me, he's an exceptional player. And in tight situations, especially in the altitude and the humidity out there, I think you can get balls to his feet and he'll be able to turn in the box and make chances that way. You know, I think that's his strength.
Let's have a quick little word, Brian, and just to interrupt you just for a moment. Looking for a winner now. I mean, if you had to put your house on a winner.
Well, I went to see Uruguay play recently, and I was very impressed with them. They can play from the back, they can play in the middle of the park, and they've got exciting players up front. So I will go along for Uruguay for the winning.
Half a minute to go, Kevin.
Well, I'd love to see, obviously, England do well, and they're talking about winning it. I think that's putting a lot of pressure on the lads. But if I had to put my house on it, I'd go for Brazil. They're playing at home, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to go for the boys, but I just think that in the long term they miss out. I'll go for Argentina, I think.
Argentina. And a word from the Saint.
Watch your St. Greaves tomorrow, and I will tell you.
You're going to reveal it all.
Greaves is at home waiting to see what I say. I'm going to have the bet tomorrow with him.
Terrific. We look forward to that. Thanks, everybody. And just before we go tonight, you don't necessarily have to watch it all on TV. 2 lucky ITV viewers could actually fly first class by British Caledonian to be in Mexico City for the final on June the 29th. We're running a competition in conjunction with the matches that we're showing live. And the first of them is a real classic in prospect on Sunday night at 6:40, our first chance to see those Brazilians. They play Spain. So watch that and learn how you can enter the competition that could take you to Mexico. So 4 weeks coming up, filled, I'm sure, with magic memories, just as it was back in 1970 when the World Cup last went down Mexico way.